So my question to you is this. Is it racism inside of the locker room?
The one sacred place that you think you have is the locker room. There's a lot of things that go on inside that, you know, the outside world isn't privy to. A lot of conversations. But does racism exist in the locker room? Yes.
Let's go!
Before we start, drop your take in the comments. Does racism exist inside NFL locker rooms? Yes or no? If yes, where do you see it show up? If no, what are we getting wrong? And be honest, does end racism painted in the end zone do anything? I'm pinning the sharpest comment, and if you ride with Shedeur, type SS 100% right now. Is it racism inside of the locker room? The one sacred place that you think you have is the locker room? There's a lot that happens in there the outside world isn't privy to. A lot of conversations. But does racism exist in the locker room? Yes. Tutan Reyes dropped the kind of truth most players never say out loud. He called the locker room the one sacred place, the brotherhood, the sanctuary, the spot where players believe they can escape the noise outside. But when pressed, he didn't flinch. Does racism exist in the locker room? Yes. That one word cracks the myth in half. Because if bias exists in the last safe space, then nowhere is immune. The conversations fans never hear, the glances, the divides, they don't stop at the locker room door. They follow players into the huddle, onto the field, into the very chemistry a team is supposed to rely on. And if that foundation is cracked, what does it mean for the game itself? If the sacred locker room isn't safe, then how deep does the problem really go?
Exactly, and I feel like identity politics is so passé, but for these folks on the left and in the mainstream media, they're still on that bandwagon of 5-10 years ago. We're not doing identity politics anymore, okay? We want a merit-based society. We want a merit-based administration, merit-based country, merit-based sports teams. That's what we want, all of this identity, and of course the same thing happens to me. People say, because of how you are, you should think a certain way, vote a certain way, you should do this. Hell no, I'm gonna vote for my best interest and do what I want. So I think all of the identity politics, whether it's black, Asian, gay, straight, bi, whatever, is all out of style, and I think these folks are just living in the past.
Let's zoom out. From slogans painted on grass, to politics in the front office, to bias inside the brotherhood itself. What if this is the NFL's greatest unspoken crisis? Now, cue the broadcast booth of American culture, pundits and comedians with their own heat. Megyn Kelly tore into the NFL's End Racism banner with dripping sarcasm. This year will be the year racists read the end zone and suddenly stop being racists. Thank you, Roger Goodell. Her point cuts like a blade. It all feels like virtue signaling. Corporate theater designed to make billion-dollar owners and TV networks pat themselves on the back. She compared it to land acknowledgments, empty rituals that let elites feel morally superior while nothing underneath really changes. It's a brutal accusation that the NFL isn't fighting racism, it's marketing morality. If slogans and hashtags don't work, what does? And why is the league still leaning on paint instead of policy? Bill Maher blasted the same message from another angle. If you're racist, a painted end zone won't change you. If you're not racist, it doesn't matter. In other words, performative theater. Who is it for? He argued it's nagging fans during a football game about something the paint can't fix. The sting is, when a comedian can rip down your billion-dollar activism campaign with one punchline, maybe the gesture isn't as strong as the NFL thinks it is. If you're tired of slogans instead of solutions, hit like, drop your thoughts, and subscribe because we're going to peel back layers the league would rather leave untouched.
Because we played together as a team. Because football is the ultimate team sport. And even in this broadcasting role, Chris, that's what I look for all the time. When a quarterback throws a touchdown pass, I actually watch to see who he goes and celebrates with. Because what did I do? I looked for my offensive lineman every time. I went down and celebrated in the end zone with my teammates every time. I wanted everyone to feel like they were part of the success. I told the linemen, we're all running to the end zone and we're celebrating as a team. Because I think that's way more intimidating than a quarterback doing his 6-shooter guns and pointing up in the crowd and doing all that other bullshit that's very self-promotional, but it's not about winning.
Inside those layers sits a different kind of critique, one that looks small on the surface but hits culture in the chest. Tom Brady laid down his philosophy on celebrations. He called the solo sizzle, the six-shooter guns, pointing to the crowd, self-promotional. For Brady, the real intimidation is sprinting to your linemen, your receivers, your backs, pulling the whole unit into the frame. Winning, he says, is a team-first attitude, old-school code, Patriot way, dynasty DNA. But here's the rub. This isn't 2005. It's 2025. Personality sells, swagger sells. Authenticity moves jerseys faster than box scores. And in a league where quarterbacks aren't just field generals, they're culture drivers. Brady's code starts to sound like a museum exhibit. Is he protecting a standard that built legends? Or throwing shade at a new generation, especially black quarterbacks, who blend skill and style unapologetically? Because at the center of all this stands Shedeur Sanders. He's not hiding behind slogans. He's not shaving off the edges that make him him. He brings swagger, brand power, and leadership into the same huddle, and he does it without losing the room. He's proof that a young black quarterback can be magnetic, can sell out Nike warehouses, can move culture, and still command the respect of the guys who block for him. He's a mirror the league doesn't always love. You can be authentic and still be a leader. So who's right? The legend who built a dynasty on discipline, or the new blood rewriting what leadership looks like under center? Let's call the debate what it really is, a clash between rituals and receipts. Rituals are the painted slogans, the corporate PSAs, the preseason commercials that tell you what the shield stands for. Receipts are the lived reality. Who gets hired? Who gets promoted? Who gets the benefit of the doubt? Who gets policed for joy? Reyes gave us the receipts. The locker room, the last supposed sanctuary, is not immune. If bias shows up in seating charts, in social circles, in who gets mentored, in which voices are considered mature or leader-like, then it shows up in Sunday outcomes too. Chemistry isn't just a buzzword. It's eye contact at the line, trust on a hot route, belief that your teammate sees you beyond the stereotype. Now, layer in the End Racism banner. Megyn Kelly's sarcasm lands because fans can smell a checkbox from a mile away. Maher's quip lands because people know a paint job can't fix a foundation. If the inside is cracked, the end zone paint feels like perfume sprayed on a fire alarm. But let's not stop at critique. If slogans don't change racists, what does? Here's what policy looks like when it's not performative. Transparent pipelines. Publish annual data on coaching interviews, hires, and promotions by position group and level. Sunlight creates accountability. Real Rooney Rule teeth. Independent observers in interviews, reportable metrics, and penalties for sham processes. Locker room protections. Anonymous reporting lines staffed by third parties. Mandatory follow-ups. And real consequences for repeated issues, not just, we'll handle it internally. Mentorship by design. League-wide programs that pair young QBs and coordinators with veteran mentors across teams, not just within the same franchise. Contractual incentives. Tie a slice of league revenue sharing to progress on hiring, retention, and development milestones. Money talks when slogans don't. Education that isn't a slide deck. Scenario-based training run by former players and psychologists who know the culture, not PR-approved modules that nobody remembers. Would those steps end racism? No, but they'd replace vibes with verification. Back to Brady. His point, team over me, has value. Lifting up linemen, sharing the moment, honoring the people who protect you, that's leadership. But here's where the delivery missed. When the critique sounds like it's aimed at a certain look, a certain swagger, a certain set of quarterbacks, it taps into a very old, very tired double standard. White stoicism gets labeled as poise. Black joy gets labeled as showboat. Same outcome, different framing. And that's why Shedeur is a flashpoint. He's a star who refuses to shrink to fit outdated boxes. He'll hug his lineman and flash a pose. He'll study film and brand a moment. He'll lead the huddle and light up a timeline. He is not either or, and that's the future. Team celebration and solo style don't have to be enemies. The spotlight is big enough for the whole squad. Now, if you're still with me, pause and comment. Which standard should define the next decade? Type T1 if you're team first, no frills. Type BYS if you're be yourself, swagger included. I want to see where the room is. Let's bring this full circle. The locker room is the heartbeat. If bias lives there, it lives everywhere. Outside that heartbeat, the league scripts morality with paint while the uncomfortable truths go unaddressed. On the field, a legend calls for humility, while a new wave insists that authenticity is part of leadership, not the enemy of it. And in the middle of the storm, Shedeur Sanders is more than a quarterback. He's a test. A test of whether the NFL can make space for a leader who is both surgical and stylish, serious and joyful, disciplined and marketable. A test of whether fans and media can judge leadership by impact, not by comfort with someone else's swagger. So what's the bigger threat to the NFL's future? Critics outside mocking empty slogans. Necessary pressure because pressure makes pipes burst or diamonds form. Old legends pushing a safe, sterile version of leadership. Useful reminder, discipline wins, unless it becomes a muzzle. Or Shedeur Sanders, a quarterback too authentic, too magnetic to fit the league's comfort zone. Personally, I think he's not a threat. He's a mirror. He reflects the culture as it is, loud, fast, connected, creative. Ignore that at your own risk. These attempts to hide the problem have only backfired, exposing a hypocrisy the public can no longer ignore. The fight for equality in the NFL is far from over, and the NFL's polished image can't erase the systemic challenges players still face. So, the question remains, will the NFL finally step up and confront its deep-rooted issues, or will it keep putting on a show to protect its brand? Because at the end of the day, owners and executives don't carry this league, players do. Players sacrifice their bodies, perform under pressure, and inspire entire cities every Sunday. They deserve more than lip service. They deserve real change, real protections, real accountability. Both tradition and expression, both team and self, both policy and passion. Paint the end zone if you want, but back it with receipts. Celebrate with your lineman and let the kid hit a pose that makes the next generation dream. Fix the locker room, because that's where the truth lives. If we can get that right, the game gets better, the culture gets better, and the shield will finally stand for something that doesn't wash off in the rain. If you agree, stand with these players. Keep their voices alive. Push the conversation forward. Drop your view in the comments. Have you seen progress or just better PR? Smash that like button if you're done with slogans without